Will a cure for cancer ever be found? I'm Emily Walker, MedPage Today, reporting from the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., where cancer experts discuss that question and others during an event held to commemorate the past 40 years of progress in cancer research and treatment.
We are here today for the purpose of signing the Cancer Act of 1971.
Panelists at the event, which was sponsored by the American Association for Cancer Research, agreed that we've come a long way since President Nixon signed the historic National Cancer Act into law in 1971, which provided funding for federal cancer research. Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, a Nobel laureate and professor of biology and physiology at the University of California, San Francisco, discussed the importance of that law.
This was historic legislation. It was dramatic in its consequences because it focused the country's attention on the vital need to conquer this disease at the earliest possible time. It was an unprecedented action, and it occurred at a time of great optimism that America could accomplish anything in a relatively short period of time. Landed on the moon, cured polio.
Back then, scientists didn't know much about what caused cancer, and doctors didn't know much about how to treat it, explained Dr. James Holland, a longtime cancer researcher and professor of medicine at Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York City.
When the National Cancer Act was signed, the prevailing orientation was we would look at cancer in a mouse, and if something worked against it, we would translate that to humans. Since then, and primarily in these last 40 years, there's been an explosion of information about what goes on within a cell. People ask, why don't you make any progress in cancer research? We have made enormous progress. There are diseases that are cured with drugs alone. Surgery has vastly improved and can even be done by robots and without opening the body cavities. Radiation can be given so that the normal tissues are spared injury. But we haven't cured everybody, and 13 million people alive is still a very small component of what it's going to be like, because every one of us is potentially susceptible of developing cancer. So we need the resources to do the fundamental research, to take the research and scientifically decide whether it is valuable for patients in clinical trials. And we must keep in mind that cancer is the group of diseases that's most feared by the American public. And therefore, there's an emotional component that has tremendous impact on families and loved ones. So we have to be aware of that also. To do that takes green blood. Money is important. Science is essential. And if you don't like the concept of progress, settle for what we have now, and that's not enough.
Federal funding for cancer research has essentially remained flat since 2003, and the AACR is pushing for Congress to funnel more funding into cancer research. The group argues that only through adequate funding will a cure for all cancer types be found. Holland says given the remarkable discoveries in a relatively short amount of time, discoveries that have led to cures for cancer of the placenta, the testes, and childhood leukemia, there's great reason to be optimistic about discovering cures for the some 200 types of cancer.
The concept that we can't do it, we have done it. And yes, we're ignorant. The real problem here is we don't know what to do for everyone because we're dumb, but we're getting smarter. And the cell and the cancer cell are smarter than we are, but we'll get there. Don't be pessimistic.
From Washington, this is Emily Walker, MedPage Today.